Alrighty, welcome back, and we're gonna keep going. So we are diving into depressive disorders, and I will admit, I to myself, I am also diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Like I said, I want to utilize this channel for it's more than just this exam. It's not always just about the exam. It's also about us, and we are self-aware of the things that we have going on with ourselves. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. I've struggled with depression for quite some years now, and it started after I lost my mother, and then I lost my son, and it was just tacked on all in together, and that as long as well with anxiety as well, but which is why I'm able to kind of teach it. It's much easier to teach when you've experienced it and when you've gone through it, right? So let's take a look. And when we talk about the depressive disorders, we are talking about what? Persistent feelings of sadness, worthlessness, hopelessness, your loss of interest in things, your daily activities that you once used to do, you don't want to do it anymore. The duration, how long it's lasting, and the severity of it can impair like anybody's daily function. And like I say, I speak to myself. Like I remember when I was in that very depressive state where it was just like I want to stay in my bed. I don't want to do anything else. This is where I found my comfort. In my bed is where I found the comfort, and it's kind of it's weird, right? When you think about it, where it's like the bed is what comforts you, and the bed is what's keeping you in the depressive state. And I remember I had to just you just got to get up. You got to get up. That sadness, that hopelessness, that loss of interest that you're having, it's right there waiting for you in that bed. And as long as you keep going back to it, it's going to be right there with you, right? So let's get started with the MDD. At least 5 of 9 symptoms a person must meet for a 2-week period before they can be diagnosed with MDD. And out of those 5 symptoms, 1 needs to be the depressed mood and the loss of interest and pleasure in things that you once used to do, daily activities, events and stuff that you used to do. At least 2 of those must be out of the 5 symptoms on this list. So if you take a look at it, right, and there's a lot, because let me tell you something. Depression does not look the same for everybody. Depression is different in each individual, right? Fatigue, loss of energy. Some people don't eat. Some people eat a lot. Hard time concentrating, irritability. Some people sleep a lot. Some people don't sleep, right? Weight loss. Some people lose weight, some people gain weight. Depression looks differently for each and every individual, right? But that depressed mood most of the day, nearly every single day, and that loss of interest in activities and pleasures and things that you once used to do is 2 of the major symptoms of MDD, right? And then if we look at it, there are specifiers for MDD. There's peripartum and then there's postpartum depression. And both of them occurs during pregnancy or within 4 weeks after the delivery, right? Postpartum depression refers to symptoms occurring up to 12 months after childbirth, right? But it's limited in the DSM-5. It was limited to within 4 weeks postpartum. And these are just your specifiers of MDD. They're not separate diagnoses. They're just specifiers, right? Because you can have MDD, but the specifier is going to be peripartum depression or postpartum depression. Within 4 weeks during pregnancy or 4 weeks after delivery, right? Postpartum occurring up to 12 months after you have had your baby. Yes, that is your specifiers for MDD. Persistent depressive disorder. Now, here is the thing about persistent depressive disorder. PDD is also what they're going to call it. It must last 2 years. Must last 2 years. And if you take a look at the list that I have, there's some of the same for MDD. But the difference is in what? The duration. MDD is only 2 weeks. PDD is 2 years. Same thing, but during that was 1 year for children and adolescents, 2 years for adults. Within those 2 years, you cannot be free without the symptoms for more than 2 months at a time. Keep that in mind. Can't be free more than 2 months within that 2 years without the symptoms before you can be diagnosed with PDD. Okay? Same symptoms as MDD. The duration is just different. The duration is just much longer. It's like chronic. It's like mild. It's like every day, but it's not as excessive. It's not as debilitating as MDD is, right? Okay, so 2 years for PDD, 2 weeks for MDD, 1 year for children and adolescents for PDD. Okay, alrighty. Premenstrual dysphoric disorder, PMDD. Now, this will happen a week before a female starts to menstruate, right? But then it's going to improve within a few days at the onset of her period, right? And it must be present in most of your menstrual cycles for at least a year. At least a year. A week before the symptoms start. Once your period starts, the symptoms are kind of like, they're going to subside. They're going to improve. But it must happen for a year before you can be diagnosed with it. And here it is. At least 5 of the symptoms, right? And again, if you take a look at that list, they're almost the same as MDD and PDD. Sudden sadness, irritability and anger, appetite changes. You're either eating too much or craving different type of foods and everything, right? Overwhelmed or out of control, difficulty concentrating, low energy, don't want to do anything. And this is going to happen a week before the period starts. But when the period starts, the symptoms must improve. And it must occur for at least 12 months before you can be diagnosed with PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, okay? Now, this is just the requirements for the diagnosis. It has to be at least 2 or more menstrual cycles, distress or impairment, and there is no other mental disorder or condition that will be able to rule PMDD out before you can be diagnosed with PMDD. Just to recap, a week before the period starts, you're going to have those symptoms. Maybe angry, sudden sadness, food cravings, whatever the case may be. Once the period starts, the symptoms are going to improve themselves. For 12 months, it needs to last. 2 or more menstrual cycles within those 12 months before you can be diagnosed with PMDD. If you notice MDD, PDD, PMDD, peripartum, postpartum, the symptoms, the core features, they run around the same lens of each other. They're about the same, but the duration is going to be different. That is what you're always going to have to pay attention to. When it comes to working with your clients and you're thinking about, oh, well, I'm thinking it's this or whatever, but like the symptoms are overlapping with each other, pay attention to the time frame, the duration. How long has it been lasting? If you're seeing the same symptoms and like the time frames is different, then the disorder cannot be the same. It won't be the same disorder, right? If the time frame is not matching to the disorder that you're thinking, then it won't be that disorder that you're thinking about. Pay attention to the duration, the time frame, the symptoms, the different how many of them it is before you can diagnose that person with that disorder. Like I said, for the depressive disorders, most of them run along the lines of having the same type of core features and the symptoms. You need to pay attention to the time frames. That is going to help you spot the difference between the disorders. Okay. I hope this video finds each and every one of you well, and I hope that now you have a broader understanding to the depressive disorders. If you still are struggling with how to differentiate these disorders from each other, leave me a question, send me a message on Facebook, leave me a comment, and I will get back to you because I want each and every one of you to have a good understanding. So when it comes time to take the exam, like I have been telling each and every one of you, pay attention to the symptoms that are being presented in the vignette. Whichever symptoms are the strongest presented, that's going to lead you to your best diagnosis answer response. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope this video has made a difference in how you are viewing depressive disorders.